Hey everyone, can you guys hear my voice? All right, we're gonna get started in just a second. Can you type into the chat just to make sure that you guys can hear me clearly? Everything sounds good. Oh, cool. Got some good convo going. Sweet. Awesome. Just gonna wait for another minute or two and then we can get started. Awesome. Let's see where some people are coming from. We have Australia. We have Florida. We have Raleigh, North Carolina, California again, Florida. Wow, a lot of different places. I'm in Brooklyn, New York right now. Woke up to it being a bit of a rainy day, but we've been having like a really hot summery days this past week. It's been beautiful weather though, just incredibly gorgeous, sunny, etc. Had a beach day this past weekend. It was just perfect weather for that. Salt Lake City, sweet. I actually went snowboarding there a little ways back. It's great weather, great mountains, etc. Okay, guys, I'm going to start the webinar, and as people come in, you can interact with them. You can ask them where they're from, etc. But I really want to get started for some of the people that have already shown up. And whether you've shown up from my blog, my podcast, YouTube, etc., I just want to take a second to thank you for following me, for supporting my work. I really try to be helpful and informative with everything that I put out. I put a lot of energy into making the podcast episodes just a lot of value and information. Same for the blog posts and also YouTube. So this is sort of a two-way street. When I first joined the community, literally there was no information out there. It's so cool to see how crowdfunding has formed and changed. And with this webinar, I want to take you through how to blow past your goal on Kickstarter. But a lot of these techniques, a lot of the things we're going to be talking about, they also apply to other crowdfunding platforms. So this could also be Indiegogo. This could be if you're doing a creative project. I think this is for you if you're an entrepreneur and you're trying to raise money for a physical product or a gadget. So we're going to go through a lot of different things that are applicable to many people out there in the audience. So the first thing here, if you have never been on a webinar before, basically it's really easy. If you have any questions, you can type them in the chat. I'll be stopping for a few parts along the webinar to answer questions and also to ask you guys some of my own questions that I have for you as I get to know the community. And the only thing that I ask is just be polite. You know, for the other students that are enrolled in the webinar, just be respectful of them. And keep in mind, we're just sharing free good vibes here and making sure that you guys feel more confident as you're going out there and you're launching your Kickstarter or your Indiegogo campaign. I sent out an email to you, some of the stuff that I'm going to be covering in this webinar, but basically we can break it down into how to get backers for your Kickstarter campaign. And as a result, how do you get funding? So that comprises not only putting together a great campaign, but also marketing it and getting the word out. I think a really great campaign can be summed up as one that converts visitors into backers. These are people that are visiting your webpage, they're visiting your campaign page, and they end up deciding to buy into your vision and becoming a backer of your crowdfunding campaign. So that's what I think a good campaign strategy actually looks like, is one that produces results. And this is sort of formulated from all the things that I've uncovered. So if you're not familiar, I've interviewed over 150 people on my podcast. I also run kickstarterforum.org. I started that website in 2012. That website has over 6,000 users. We have crowdfunding forum, crowdcrux.com. So a lot of different opportunities that I've had to interact with creators. And I'm just kind of sharing what I found works best and some of the things that aren't really talked about very often. It's really hard to get a lot of communication aside in just like a blog post. I really want to go in depth here and share some key strategies that I see working. My goal for you at the end of this webinar, I want you to feel more confident. If I had to sum up this in one word, I want you to feel confident about going out there and launching a campaign. And I want to feel like you're working with proven strategies that are not guaranteed, but are very highly likely to get you backers. I want you to feel better knowing that other people out there are also trying to raise money, and maybe you can even chat with some of them in the chat box. And I want you to sort of imagine too, I've seen so many careers that have been launched via Kickstarter. It's like the perfect name, Kickstarter. It really does start a lot of new careers. I think it's really rare that we have a moment in time where you can do something and it can fundamentally change the trajectory of your career and your life and what you're doing. It's very rare that we encounter a moment like that in our lives. Most growth is very linear, a few percent per year, maybe a few percent per month. But I think it's really strange when there's something out there that can so drastically change your vision for the future and just open up doors and opportunities in terms of connecting with suppliers, connecting with retailers, connecting with customers, connecting with people who form a raving base behind your community and launching a 6 or 7 figure business. It's so cool to me that you can do that via the Kickstarter platform. So that's what we're going to be talking about. And why should you listen to me finally? Who am I? I sort of went through a little bit of my bio. I started writing about this topic in 2012. I pretty much then segued to the podcast where I've been interviewing creators for a long time now. I've launched Kickstarter forum, crowdfunding forum. I've put out 4 books on crowdfunding. The one probably most relevant to you is the Kickstarter launch formula. And I also do YouTube. I put out YouTube videos on the topic. So I've learned a lot in terms of what works and what doesn't. And I've seen a lot of strategies that I didn't really expect to do well actually play out really well on Kickstarter. So I'm also learning along with you guys. I've certainly mastered a lot of the material, but I wouldn't say that I'm an expert. There are still things I'm always getting to know better, and I'm always learning from the new projects that bubble up and some of the cool new products that come to light and the techniques that they use to get attention and to get backers. And finally, I've been privileged to be cited by New York Times, Wall Street Journal, CNN, Forbes, and a lot of other publications that have said really nice things about my work and what I contribute to the community. So before we get started, I want to ask you one simple question, and you can take a second to leave your answer in the chat. Have you launched a Kickstarter campaign before, or are you in the middle of one? And the reason I ask that is I actually have a lot of people who will come to me specifically after they have failed at raising money on Kickstarter. And the reason is they now begin to see things become more relevant in terms of putting a strategy behind the fundraising process. Whereas initially they just kind of threw up a campaign and were hoping to raise money. It didn't work out. So now the second time around, they have a more deliberate approach and they're actually wondering, okay, how do I go out there? How do I get my name out there? How do I get backers, etc.? So I'd love to know, have you launched a Kickstarter campaign before? And answering some of these questions and also leaving your own questions, it's going to allow me to tailor this webinar a bit to you and make sure that I'm delivering the best possible content for you so that you can act on it and raise more money on Kickstarter. So sort of the pillars of a crowdfunding campaign, you can kind of think of this as like a table. If you have one leg of the table, it's not going to really stand upright. You need a few of these different pillars in order for the table to stand upright. The first one are the campaign assets. And these are sort of the hard assets. These are the things that when someone comes to your campaign, these are going to influence whether or not someone takes the time to not only check out what you're doing, but also to buy into your vision and to go from being a visitor to a campaign backer. So these include your pitch video, the rewards that you have on the page, your copywriting. The copywriting is sort of like a fancy term for text that is meant to persuade. So you think of an ad copy, that's copywriting. Copywriting is meant to not only sell someone on the vision that they're going to have when they buy this product, but also the value of the product, the benefits of it, and sort of hit those emotional triggers so that people feel that urge to want the product. It's a lot different than just rational listing out the features of the product, et cetera. You're really persuading with copywriting, and that's part of the campaign. Of course, also the images, the title, the description, that makes up the hard assets. Then there is the marketing strategy, and sort of as an umbrella, underneath that is the marketplace strategy. So marketing strategy, there's a lot of different things out there, whether it's organic social media, whether it's paid per click on Facebook, Instagram, etc., whether it's email marketing, PR, influencer marketing. That's sort of the getting the word out, getting people who are strangers to back your crowdfunding campaign, who are not a part of the core Kickstarter ecosystem. That's sort of the next pillar here if you have a stool. The third one is the marketplace strategy. So with this, Kickstarter is inherently a marketplace of buyers and sellers. And you think of a marketplace, let's just say like Amazon. Amazon is also a marketplace of buyers and sellers. And I think a lot of sort of newbie or new Kickstarter creators, they see campaigns being raised for 6 and 7 figures. And they're like, wow, like I want a piece of the action. It looks like people are just kind of tossing around money on this platform. And honestly, it could not be further from the truth. Just because there are a lot of regular buyers on Amazon and there's a lot of transactions that are happening on the platform, it doesn't mean it's easy to become a 6-figure or a 7-figure entrepreneur via Amazon. What it is its potential. You have to sort of understand how to position yourself to that marketplace so you can actually grab a piece of the pie. Just by being a part of the marketplace does not guarantee that you're going to get funded. You also have to know how to position yourself to the people who are regular frequenters of that marketplace. A bit egotistical, but I want to quote myself. This sort of sums up everything we're going to be talking about on the webinar, and also everything that I think is my job. The goal of all marketers is to influence lurkers to become customers. To influence lurkers to become customers. So what does that mean? If you think about, you think of a table and you think about it as a continuum. Your goal is to move people from one side of the table to the other. The one side of the table is a lurker. A lurker is someone who is vaguely interested in what you're doing. They have a general sense of maybe who you are or the product, and they're very much like barely interested. Your goal is to move them from that type of emotional mindset to someone who is bought into your vision, supports what you're doing, who is enthusiastic as you are about the product, and who is a customer. And sort of the external showing of that is that they put in their hard-earned dollars and back your crowdfunding campaign. They put their money where their mouth is. So your goal is to move them on this continuum. And thankfully, there are some things we'll be talking about that you can do to move them along this continuum more smoothly, so that if you send 1,000 people to a campaign, if they're all just lurkers, not many of them will become customers or backers. But if you have already warmed them up, then more and more actually do become backers. So this first section of the webinar, I'm going to be going through some of the subtle psychological techniques that are not talked about very often and that are kind of glazed over. And people are like, they don't really spend very much attention on them, but they're actually critical for moving people on that continuum and getting them to become backers of your crowdfunding campaign. One of the reasons that crowdfunding just works like so freaking well is because of the concept of urgency. And what you'll notice is all the things I'm going to be mentioning are a specific emotion that you can pinpoint. So what is urgency? Urgency is the feeling of importance, usually tied to time. When you feel urgent about something, you immediately must do it. You must immediately pick up your friend, I don't know, from work, or pick up your kid from school, or if you're in school, get done and write an essay because it's due tomorrow. If you're in work, get done this project because the deadline is really soon. You feel a sense of urgency, which is actually what prompts you to take action. And when we feel a sense of urgency, along with taking action, we sort of drone out everything else in our world. If you have a project that's due tomorrow for your job and maybe your kids are playing around, you're going to tune out that noise and you're going to get the project done because it's due soon and you have to. The way that urgency works with crowdfunding is, number one, the fundraising duration. There's a limited amount of time when people can support this project or this campaign. When you communicate that level of urgency, it makes people prompt action. It makes people really take action immediately. And a good example of this is the Kickstarter slump. So the Kickstarter slump, if you're not aware, there is a boost in funding in the first 1 to 5 days of a campaign. And typically in the last 2 to 3 days of a campaign, you see a spike in pledges. And people are like, well, why is there a spike in pledges? It's because the campaign is closing. People can no longer back it. So they feel a high degree of urgency about it. So this is the only chance they're going to have to get their pledge in. So what you can do as a creator and as a marketer is to really communicate that urgency. And one way to do that, for example, is when you launch, there are a limited number of reward tiers, limited quantity reward tiers that people can claim. And that makes them feel a sense of urgency because if they don't claim it, it's not going to be available anymore. I think that urgency is a really strong reason why people take action. And you should try to sort of bake that into your marketing. The other question I get a lot from not only forum users and readers and listeners, et cetera, is the concept of why is it that a stranger backs a crowdfunding campaign? Why is it that someone around the world who doesn't know you is willing to, quote unquote, give you money? And we both know it's not really give you money. It's more of a transaction here. They're getting something for that. But why is that? And the reason comes down to they feel a sense of empathy towards what it is you're doing and also who you are. They have a sense that they know you. They feel like they can trust you. They like the product and how it might fit into their life. And the way that you accomplish this is with story. So how do you get people to feel these various emotions that you feel about a product? Have you ever you felt so cool about making something, a product, could even be like writing something or crafting something. You feel like it's insane, it's awesome, it's amazing. And you show it to one of your friends and they aren't as excited as you are. They don't feel the same way that you do about the product. The way that you can make someone feel the exact same way that you do about something is with a story. A good example of this is if you're in a situation, I don't know, maybe you had a wild night or a wild experience or something, and you have to tell people what happened. The way that you tell your friends is you tell a mini story. And maybe you act it out, and maybe you describe things like what you were wearing or what this person looked like or what that person sounded like when they said such and such. And that allows people to put themselves in that situation. Even researchers have done studies on this, and you will activate the parts of the brain that if you were actually in that situation, you would also activate. A very easy way to think about this is when do we usually feel a very strong degree of emotion in our life? Aside from maybe our job, if we're upset about something, the main way that I think Americans and even around the world feel emotions is through television and is through movies. You can sit in a dark theater looking at a screen of fake characters and you can feel sadness, you can feel happiness, you can laugh, you can feel anxious or like you're part of the action, you can feel your adrenaline pumping. It's kind of crazy. We laugh at things like cats or dogs when they look at an iPad and they react to it, but we do the exact same thing with our own emotions. And the way you can trigger these feelings is by crafting your own story about the product so that people gain the sense of emotion towards it. Another huge reason that crowdfunding works just so well is the concept of social proof. And social proof, I think this word, I kind of throw it around sometimes, but I really want to define it. You can think of social proof as when a lot of people are doing something or when a lot of people are thinking something, you typically are more inclined to lean on their perspective or their rationalization or to check out whatever it is that they're putting attention towards. A very easy example of this is if you're in Central Park. I live maybe about 30 minutes from Central Park. If I go to Central Park and I see a really big crowd surrounding one person. I go there and I'm kind of like curious, like, who is this person? Are they a performer? Are they a celebrity? If you're a tourist, you know you're going to stop there. You're like, oh, we're only going to spend like 5 minutes just checking out what this performance is. 30 minutes later, you're watching the end of the performance to see what happens. Social proof is the concept that because a lot of people are gathered around that performer or that person, you're more likely to spend attention on that activity. So maybe if no one was around there and you just saw them kind of performing, you just walk by and be like, oh no, we have to go and check out this museum or that thing. Versus if you go and there's a big crowd, you're like, oh, look, an event is happening here. Look, people are smiling. This thing is worth spending our time. Even if it's not a great performer, you just kind of stay there because you want to check out the event. So what social proof does is it commands attention. It doesn't always persuade. Sometimes it will really persuade people if a lot of other people are doing something. It's sort of seen as quote unquote the normal activity to do. But in terms of crowdfunding, if someone comes to your campaign page and 0 people have backed your campaign or a small number, people are not likely to spend the attention to actually watch your video or look more deeply into what you're doing. You sort of need to manufacture a bit of this social proof, whether it's having 30% of your goal, having people in the comment section, etc. That's going to make people feel like, oh, okay, like other people are checking it out. If I spend 3 minutes to watch this video, it's not going to be wasted. There is an expectation that it's worth my time, if you will. Even also things like restaurants. You go and pass by a restaurant, no one is there, and then you go and pass by another restaurant and there's a bunch of people there, you're more likely to go into the restaurant with a lot of other people because the food is good, quote unquote. That's the rationalization you have in your mind. Same thing works with marketing and same thing works with crowdfunding campaigns. So you want to think about the social proof for your campaign. The fourth thing I want to mention here is the concept of building relationships at scale. And what does that mean? This is a really good question. If you think of me, for example, you might have a sense of a little bit who I am. And that could be from my blog posts, that could be from my voice on my podcast, that could be seeing me on YouTube, a bit of my personality, like how I like to be more informal. I don't really like to be very uptight, etc. If you saw me walking down the street and I'm smiling, just kind of walking down, you'd be like, hey, Sal, what's up, man? Like, I love your blog. They're like, hey, what's up? And we like chat for a few minutes about your project. There would be no intimidation there because I'm easy and I'm approachable. This is the same thing that you can do with your crowdfunding campaign. You can increase not only the sense that people know you and trust you, but that you can also increase the fact that they like you. And the easiest way to do this is to share bite-sized things about your personality, about you, your story, or your brand. This gives people the opportunity to get to know what you're passionate about a little bit, or get to know a little bit about who you are and your values and your lifestyle. That's what actually enables people to feel that emotion of trust towards a stranger across the web on the internet. It's really incredible to me. And of course, this goes without saying, this should never be used for nefarious purposes. This is only for the marketing of a product that you truly have worked hard on and that you truly believe in. I think we're sort of stunted a little bit in our emotional growth because many of us work at corporations or at businesses where they sort of don't want you to show your personality, or they don't want you to show emotions. It's almost frowned upon. And you want more business, impersonal communication and speaking and very scripted words like, how you doing, Bob? Like, are you getting on those reports? It's a very scripted interaction. So when people are more informal and you treat your backers as a friend and you write to them in a very conversational tone, they feel like you're another human being and not just another slimy marketer out there who wants their money and is just in it for themselves. I think it's really powerful. So I just talked a lot. I want to go through, look at some of the questions for a second. And I also want to ask you another question. So what is your biggest challenge? Not only with crowdfunding, but also with your business. It could be with marketing. What is your biggest challenge right now with your creative project or your product or your gadget or your gizmo? Let me know by leaving a question in the chat. And I will also go in to some of the other things that we have on the webinar. I'm just looking here through some of the questions. Does Kickstarter work for companies targeting baby boomers? Maybe younger backers buying gifts for their parents. I would say the average age of a Kickstarter backer is between 25 and at the upper end 40. When you get towards the much upper ends, usually people aren't as savvy with knowing what Kickstarter is, and there's a little bit of education that's required. So you do have to sort of introduce your backers a little bit more to the concept of what a Kickstarter campaign is, and tell them about the fundraising duration and your goal, and what happens if you don't meet your goal, and how, yes, this is a secure platform where it's okay to give your credit card information. It's very secure. So you have to do a little bit of education if you are targeting people in older generations. In terms of buying gifts, I have seen a lot of different projects that sort of make better gifts than products for yourself. But also those tend to be more around seasonal holiday times, or times when your front of mind, sorry, is that I'm looking for a gift or something like that. But even then, I think it is something to consider. If your primary backers are going to be people who are buying this as a gift, how you're also going to position that. So you could use something very simple like Facebook targeting to really nail down those individuals, their age ranges, etc., and sort of spark their idea. Or even with a interesting, like, these are interesting gifts for your parent, kind of a lead magnet. And we're going to talk a little bit about that in a second. Let me just take a glass of water here. Let's see here. What do I think of Indiegogo? I think Indiegogo, just being very factual here, it is less popular than Kickstarter, but at the same time, I've seen many successful campaigns on Indiegogo, particularly in the gadget category. I've also seen a lot of people who will go on Kickstarter, raise money, and then they do an in-demand Indiegogo campaign. So they actually transition it from Kickstarter to Indiegogo. So one of the benefits here is then there's the social proof of the amount of money you've raised, and you don't have to set up then something like a Shopify store or a Magento store in order to collect orders after Kickstarter. You can just go with in demand, and there's a little bit of a fee there, but I have seen that be a successful transition. Aside from that, Indiegogo is also a marketplace. They have their GoGo Factor algorithm. GoGo Factor is a little bit different than the Kickstarter's algorithm. Kickstarter's algorithm, I think, is a little bit more, at least historically, they factor in things like magic, which includes the picks, the people that have of the staff liked different projects. With GoGo Factor, it's a little bit more merit-based in my experience. And they also will do a little bit more in terms of they reach out to creators before they actually launch the campaign, and they'll try and have discussions with creators to sort of answer all of their questions and also do a little bit more support. So I think Indiegogo is actually more hands-on than Kickstarter. Historically, maybe only in the last year and a half they've gotten better, but historically Kickstarter has been very standoffish, and they haven't been very good about replying and providing support. But they are trying to get better at that, definitely, with a lot of their new initiatives. Let's see here. I'll answer one or two more questions. Building an email list, we're going to be talking about that. Facebook ad strategy, I can cover that in the marketing section, which will be in just a second. Proprietary details. Yeah, I think crowdfunding just kind of lends itself more to being an open model. It's very hard to do if you have like a secret patent or a secret thing that you can't reveal about your product, and you're just kind of putting up a page hoping that people are going to lean on you and say, like, yes, I trust you. It's going to be really hard. You really have to be very transparent. You have to be very open with Kickstarter and Indiegogo. If you're doing an equity crowdfunding campaign, you could limit the knowledge to the patent or to whatever it is by, if you're doing like a Regulation A+ offer or Title III, you could have people maybe sign an NDA before they view the investment offering. But that's more for equity crowdfunding, not Kickstarter. Do you agree that backer preference for physical products suggests that SaaS or software plays should figure out how to give backers something tangible related to the service? Aaron, that is exactly what I think it is. From at least the people I've spoken with, it's really, really difficult to get funding for a software product on Kickstarter unless you package it up in some way. I have had people successfully raise money off of Kickstarter with a privately hosted campaign. The Hours app, I think they raised about $50,000, was an example of that. Someone I had on my podcast. But what they did was they showed an initial prototype of the software and they got users initially. And then from those users who had interacted with the software, they then announced the campaign to them. And they first announced it to like a subsection of the users who were most active. So these people already played around with the software. They knew the team could deliver. The team just needed funding. It's hard if someone doesn't know your capabilities, they haven't interacted with you previously, to convince them of a software product on Kickstarter. Okay, I'm going to continue here, and then there's going to be one or two other sections where we can take some questions. Email marketing. If you have a limited amount of time to be able to spend on a Kickstarter or an Indiegogo campaign, I think that the number one question is, how should you spend your time? And also, how should you spend your money? When I first got involved with crowdfunding, I thought that it was all about just having lots and lots of social media followers, lots and lots of people who are following you online, and then you just kind of like magically get funded. As I went and as I learned and as I grew as a marketer, I've learned that the number one sales channel in terms of converting people on that continuum from lurkers to backers is email. And that was a really big surprise to me because I don't really check email, at that time. It was more like Facebook messages and Instagram and that kind of stuff. I didn't really like email very much, but it is still the number one way that people find out about new product launches. And it's a very high converting source for Kickstarter pledges. So I think the number one thing that you can do to level up your marketing, to get more traffic, more backers, etc., is to build your email list. And now the question becomes, okay, I have to build my email list. How do I do that? The most creators that I've had on the podcast and most people that I've seen build a significant email list, it's been one of two ways. The first way is, they have an organic following, they do content marketing, which I'll be talking about in a second, and they sort of grow it that way. The second way, particularly if you're strapped for time, is to set up a landing page and have a lead magnet. So landing page is different than a normal website in that a landing page is literally just optimized for an email signup. Like there are no links, there's no navigation, there's no about. There might be like an about section, but there are no other links or social media links. The only action that someone can do on a landing page is they can subscribe to your email list, or they can close the browser window, or they can hit the back button. And by doing that, you can very easily see what your conversion rate is. So if you send 100 people to a landing page and 30 of them end up converting into email subscribers, that tells you something really valuable. If you pay, doing Facebook ads or Instagram or something to send 200 people to a landing page, you'll know how many email subscribers you're going to get. And the lead magnet is another sort of in dual with this that you can do. You can offer something for free on this landing page. It could be something for free, simple, like get an early bird discount when we go live. It could be something free, like gain access to some other type of reward that you're offering on Indiegogo. You can do a secret perk. On Kickstarter, maybe you could offer something else, or access to a community, or there are so many different free things you can offer that entice people to get onto that email list. But even just simply saying that you're going to gain access to the early bird reward tiers, the most discounted rewards, that's a really compelling value proposition. And also, I would say that there is both Facebook cold traffic that you can send, or Facebook retargeted traffic. And I can go into that in a little bit if you guys would like to on Facebook ads. The next big way to not only build your email list, to not only build your tribe, but also to begin to get traffic to your crowdfunding campaign, your business, etc., is via content marketing. So content marketing is very simple. Basically, it's putting out free content. Free content doesn't have to be yours necessarily. You could be sharing free articles or free videos or links or whatever it is, images, inspiring quotes. You're putting out something free so that people decide to subscribe to you on a particular platform. That subscription could be via email. I like blog posts, putting out free things so they sign up for your email list. It could be on Facebook, putting out free things on your Facebook page so that people like your page and get notifications. It could be on Instagram, Twitter, etc. You're putting out free stuff to build up your subscribers on a particular platform. And then once you have those subscribers, you can every once in a while do a self-promotional message. So you can be adding a lot of value, sharing informational or entertaining content, and every once in a while direct people to a landing page or direct people to buy your products or to support your campaign. This is another way that you can build your tribe, is with content marketing. Thing that I want to talk about, this sort of plays hand in hand with all the different strategies that we've discussed, is the concept of the mere exposure effect. So what is the mere exposure effect? The mere exposure effect in psychological jargon is basically when you see someone more often, you tend to like them. When you see someone's face more often and more often and more often, you tend to trust them more. You tend to have your defensive barriers lowered a bit, and you actually tend to like them a bit more. A very easy example of the mere exposure effect is you might have a neighbor that you see all of the time. You see them a few times a week or even once a day, and you don't know anything about them. They could be like a psychopath killer for all that you know. But just because you've seen them so much, and maybe you smiled at each other or something, you begin to feel familiar around them. Begin to lower your defenses around them. You're not afraid to talk to them, etc. This is really powerful because it extends, that same emotion extends to social media marketing and email marketing, and developing that feeling of trust, familiarity, and empathy. So the more that someone sees your name, the more they see your company's brand, the more they associate that with good emotions via content marketing, the more likely they are that when you do ask them to check out your crowdfunding campaign on Indiegogo or Kickstarter, they're going to do that. And they're going to take at least a few seconds to watch your video, to consume, see what you're doing, because there is that mere exposure effect buildup where they feel more comfortable. You're not just some stranger, some strange company out there. You're actually a familiar company. You're someone that's not out there just to scam them or to get their money. You're someone who's working hard to build a product and a project that you care about. So that's the mere exposure effect. I think that another big strategy that I've talked about a little bit is the concept of PR and influencer marketing. So before we get into this section, I want to answer that question about Facebook ads. And I also want to see if there are any other questions in the chat. So the first thing, the question about Facebook ads. There are a few different things you can do with Facebook ads, particularly paid traffic, to send people to a landing page or to send people to your Kickstarter campaign. I think that you can break it down into either cold traffic or warm traffic. So the difference between cold traffic and warm traffic: cold traffic is people that don't know who you are and they don't know anything about your product or your business. So these are people that maybe just see your Facebook ad, could be an image or a video, and they just go and click through because of the message that you set and the value that you promise, and then they check out your campaign. That's cold traffic. Warm traffic is you install a Facebook pixel on your website and you retarget those people. So these are people that have actually gone on your website and now they see a Facebook ad about your product, about you, about an offering. Some of you actually, but here might be because of a retargeted pixel I did on Facebook ads. So that's an example of warm traffic. So you can do cold traffic or warm traffic, and you can also do Facebook leads, just clicks, impressions, I would recommend sticking to either Facebook leads or Facebook conversion or clicks, because that's what I found to be the best bang for my buck and the best types of conversions. What do you think a good conversion rate at a lead magnet landing site is? For a product, I've seen 20, 30% being pretty standard. Better than that is usually pretty good. So if you're getting 40 or 50%, that is really good. With my community, because I've warmed up people to who I am and the caliber of the content I deliver, like I work really freaking hard to write good blog posts and such. I usually see higher than that, like 60, sometimes even 70%. So it's really high. If you're only seeing 1 or 2%, there might be a message difference here. Like people either are clicking through the ad and they don't understand what you're offering, or the design of the page throws them off, or they don't understand the value proposition, they get confused and they click off. If you are doing an advertisement and you're seeing a low number of people on Facebook actually click that ad, that could be that whatever it is you're offering is not relevant to the target demographic. So the actual Facebook audience is not the best. You might need to choose a different Facebook audience, or you might need to change your messaging on the advertisement. So there are 2 different conversion rates there. And that's much more, it really depends on how well your fit is. It really depends on how well you've crafted. You understand what the person wants, how good your product is, whether or not people want your product. All these different things are going to play into your conversion rate. For me, the reason I see high conversion rates is I've gotten to know my audience over the span of 4 years, so it's taken a while. All right, one more question, then I'm going to move on here. What about spam filters? Spam filters, I think that's really that's something where if you're doing autoresponders or you're sending emails leading up to the launch of a campaign, that's something that you do have to worry about. What I found to be the case is if you can notify people to either mark your account as safe or to open your email initially, that's going to really help with the spam filter, or to check their spam. Make sure you have that on the landing page after they opt in, have a message that says, check your spam because I'm going to be sending this to your email address. I want to make sure you get it. One thing I do, like for example, with Kickstarter Forum, people can only register once they've opted in, and it's a free service. You can go on there, you can check out the promos, you can interact, you can promote your campaign, etc. People then check their spam because if the link went in there, it's really relevant to them. So making sure you're delivering something that's relevant, people are going to expect to receive it. When they don't get it, they're going to check their spam or they're going to check their promotions tab. So that's one very easy way. Okay. We're going to have one other opportunity for questions, so be sure to post them in the chat so that I can answer them and make sure that you get the most value out of this webinar. Today's question, the next question is, what do you see as the value of PR and the media in terms of not only getting into a major media publication, but also getting influencers to write about you, getting people to talk about you, have you on their podcast, feature you on an Instagram post or on a YouTube channel? What do you view as the value of that? I'm kind of curious because I've had split audiences. I've seen people who don't do any kind of PR and have a successful campaign. I've also seen people who say, man, I wish we had done more PR and had more of a successful campaign. So I'm kind of curious there in terms of your answer. For me, I think that PR, the number one reason that I have focused on PR in the last year or so is because it really raises your credibility. You think of, like, for example, the job marketplace. The job marketplace, in order to be credible, you need a good resume. You need to come from a good college, maybe. You need to have a good recommendation from your employer. If you're going to finance, if you worked at Goldman Sachs, that's a really good credibility indicator. In terms of the online world and in terms of getting products in front of people, PR and PR logos are a great indicator, almost in the same way that having a great college degree or working at a great company is for the job marketplace. So it creates the sense that if I've been in the Wall Street Journal, which I have been cited there, or the New York Times, et cetera, that I know what I'm talking about. Or if my product has been on TechCrunch, that I'm someone to look out for, that this product is noteworthy or interesting. And it goes back to the whole continuum here. Your goal is to move people from lurkers to backers. If they see media logos, if they see you've been in a publication they recognize, maybe something related to hiking, a hiking magazine that they read, or some Instagrammer they really like, it's going to lower the defensive barriers, create that feeling of familiarity and trust, and get them to check out your campaign and look more into what it is you're doing. The other big reason that I like PR is that you actually get traffic. The whole name of the game, we talk about Facebook audiences. There are also publications out there. There are influencers out there who have access to a whole audience of people. These are people who already know them, who already know that, you wouldn't recommend something unless they liked it or they used it or they found it to be really cool. So naturally, when you get into a publication, you're going to see a spike in traffic based on the readers of that publication, or if it's like a podcast, based on the listeners of that podcast. So I think it's really valuable for sort of cracking into an entirely new community online. It's kind of like a whole new tribe of people. So that's why I think another reason that it is just so valuable. The third, this is sort of the entire equation. So in terms of the continuum, you get traffic, you have credibility, you have people actually, checking out your project, they're viewing the video, they're reading through the campaign text. Your goal is to persuade that number of people on that campaign page to become a backer of your campaign. And PR is just another social proof indicator that other people out there have certified you, other people out there are talking about you. Therefore, it's an event. It's something that's happening. People feel more likely that they're going to get something out of it if they do back your project. And if they kind of go out on a limb there and do that, it's hard to do. So it does increase also the conversion rate in terms of the number of backers you get, the number of pledges you get, etc. I think that's really powerful. So this is one of the reasons that I have put together in the last year an entire curriculum based around PR. How to get into the media, how to get influencers to write about you, and really just how to stand out. That's the name of the game. Like when I first started with Kickstarter, there was like no one there. It was very easy to get funding compared to today. You didn't need a very perfect project. You could literally just launch on the platform and you get some attention. Nowadays, there are projects launched every single day, and you need to harness some of that attention. And I think that's, for me at least, one of the reasons that I wanted to work on this system. But in addition, I've just seen a lot of effects of PR. So when I was writing in 2012, I'm my empathy levels were not the same then as they are today. I just kind of thought that because I was writing and because I, was very well researched and, knew what I was talking about and citing certain strategies, that everyone would just kind of assume like, yeah, obviously Sal's a hard worker. For my entire life, I've been a hard worker. I've always been someone who's put good values first, et cetera. Whether it's in school or other entrepreneurial ventures I've been doing, I've always really worked hard. But I wasn't seeing the kind of results that I wanted. I did have a following then. I did have people reading my blog, but it wasn't until I sort of gained, quote unquote, mainstream approval that I began to see my own results skyrocket. So when I first got into publications like the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, CNN, etc., more recently, Forbes, Founder Magazine, I was just on Startup Radio, I think last week. People look at me differently, even though nothing has changed. I've always been a hard worker. I've always, put out quality content. But the perception that people have of me, and also with you, the perception that people have around your product changes. To give you an example, this is one of the reasons I was on the radar of people who are looking for speakers at Harvard. And I got to give a small talk at Harvard on crowdfunding. The basics of crowdfunding, how you can raise money, et cetera. And the only reason a researcher reached out to me was because they saw that, which is so cool. I would never expect that to happen. It kind of just levels up the level of the game that you're playing, and it changes people's perception about who you are and the value that you provide. Otherwise, I'm just another blogger, or you're just another person out there trying to raise money on Kickstarter. And it was also kind of crazy because as I began to form more of a understanding of PR and these different marketing tactics, and keep in mind, this was 4 years ago. It's taken me a while to learn all these different things and put this together into a complete system. But I realized that so many Kickstarter and Indiegogo campaigns are using the exact same strategies and principles, and they're using it in the ways that I have. They're using it, number one, to get into the media, but then number two, to persuade these lurkers to become backers. And it's not only limited to Kickstarter and Indiegogo. I've seen this also done with many nonprofit campaigns. And as I've studied it even more and more, it also applies to traditional product launches that are not on Kickstarter or Indiegogo. So it's really something that is very powerful as a persuasion tool, in my opinion. And it's something kind of, we have this I guess desire to outsource all these different elements of our business. Like, these are quote unquote experts who know how to run a crowdfunding campaign or know how to get us PR because they're this PR agency, they're this marketing agency. We just kind of assume that these other experts out there are doing super secret strategies and things that we can't do. But it's not true. If I can learn this, if I can grow a following, if I can build an email list, if I can help other people to also do the same who have never done it before, who have never launched a product on Kickstarter, you can do the exact same thing. And you can also do the same thing that these PR agencies are doing. They're not all that special, guys. I know that they charge a lot of money. One reason being they know the value of their services. One PR hit can mean thousands of dollars in pledges or thousands of orders. So they understand the value of PR and the influence that it can create among backers and buyers. But at the same time, all they're doing is the stuff that I am mentioning right here, right now. You don't need a fancy PR agency. You can do it yourself. And even if you do want to hire a PR agency or you want to hire someone to manage or market your campaign, I really think it pays to know a little bit of what you're doing. So that way you're not going with someone who just started their company, 6 months ago and has no idea what they're doing, or they're just taking advantage of you because you're a small startup or a small business. You actually can sort of verify that they know what they're doing, that they have skin in the game, and that they're going to get you results. So I think it's also really important for that reason. So this is sort of the entire lead up to this system that I created, which again took me a number of years to be able to master all of this material. And I think that I put out a lot of content in terms of videos and podcasts and blog posts, but over the years, one of the things I've always wanted to do more of was to put together content that is easier to consume. It's actually really easy for me to write, a really long blog post, or say like a YouTube video, to do an hour-long YouTube video. But the problem is it's not easy to consume. I can spend time producing information and valuable content, but I also want to make it easy for you to get through and to not have to wade through all of these tangents and things that don't matter to you, to really just get the nuggets of gold that you can quickly apply to your campaign so you can begin to get results faster. And that was sort of my mindset going into putting together this course. Created it, I sent it out. I had a lot of people who gave some really good feedback. I tailored it, I changed it around, I edited it, I put it together again, and that's sort of been the process for putting together this course. And people really seem to like the visual quality. You'll notice over the years, I've gotten a lot better, not only at audio quality with my podcast, but also with video quality on my YouTube channel. And that's because I've invested in higher quality video cameras. I've invested in learning how to do things like video overlays and transitions and all of these things to maintain your attention. So that was one really big bit of feedback. I've had people who have bought my previous courses and books, etc., enroll in this new one and have gotten a lot of value out of this content. So I think it's not only for you if you just discovered me yesterday. It's also if you've known me for a while. I've had people enroll who knew me for 2 years and have bought other products and decided to enroll in this one because they were also looking to level up their game from the PR aspect. Guido, so I don't know, for those of you who've listened, I had a podcast go out maybe 2 weeks back. Guido actually came back on my podcast and he was sharing the results he got from the course, which was just so cool to me. because that's the exact reason that I put it together. I wanted to see and make sure that people got media hits and actually accelerated their fundraising meter, all of these different things. So he signed up. And I think I'll show you a slide in a few seconds to sort of expand on this story. I've also had people sign up who pretty much they ran a successful campaign, but they realized that with their next project or next campaign, they want to focus more on PR. So at the beginning of this webinar, I mentioned that some of the people who discover me only begin to invest in some of these premium programs and products when they realize there is a need for a launch plan, particularly proven strategies that are working to get traffic and backers, because they launched the first campaign, it fails, anywhere from 60 to 80% of campaigns fail depending on the category that you choose. So it's really interesting to see some of these students come back who have already even had a successful campaign. This gentleman raised over $300,000 and decide to invest in the PR arm of the projects so they go even stronger into the next campaign. I've had, okay. So this story, I wanted to expand on this really quickly. And then I'll also talk about some of the other things I'm going to be offering. So Guido is a really interesting success story from this course because basically we kept in touch. He's really just, man, he's like a ball of energy. He's kind of like me in that there's like a newness to all of these new strategies, and he's very excited about all this stuff. So he wrote in a little while ago talking about how he got onto engineering.com, which for his product is like, geez, that's like the holy grail. Like it's a really big website in his space. And then he can use those media logos and mention that and use that to build credibility and also get traffic and all of these different things. It's so cool to me that people like this out there are applying these strategies and then are seeing the results. But what I have to, share here is this is not going to work if you're not willing to also follow these lessons and to follow these strategies that I outlined. It's not going to work. If, for example, you buy a gym membership, that doesn't guarantee you're going to be fit. You also have to go there and you have to employ the strategies that your personal trainer recommends. It's just not going to happen magically out of thin air. So I want to be realistic there. So I have a few different offerings, and I also have a new offering on this webinar that I have never offered, previously. So the first thing I want to say is that not only with PR, there are a lot of different strategies, as we've been talking, to get backers in the door and to get people to not only check out your campaign, but actually scroll through and begin to be receptive to your message and actually think about, hey, this is actually a cool product. This might be something I want to back. There are a lot of different strategies for that. And I know that PR is not the only pillar out there. There are many. So that's why I am including Smash Your Kickstarter Goal in this offering. So this is a bundle. When you enroll, you're not only going to gain access to the complete crowdfunding PR system, you're also going to gain access to Smash Your Kickstarter Goal. And this is a bonus, a $247 bonus. This course goes through a lot of different things like we've been talking about in terms of growing your social media following, automating the process, the Kickstarter marketplace, how to stand out and trend better in the marketplace. And a lot of these things, I would say the majority also apply to Indiegogo. So this is not just for Kickstarter, but if I know that there are I prefer to learn from books personally. I also love podcasts because, you can go in the gym, you can be in the car and you can listen to a podcast. But I wanted to include the crowdfunding fast track in this because I recognize that not everyone learns from videos. Not everyone just wants to look over checklists and templates and these different things. You also maybe want to have some written content to walk you through sort of as a guidebook as you're going through these various lessons. So you're also going to gain access to the crowdfunding fast track when you enroll, along with Smash Your Kickstarter Goal. And I know that as you're going about preparing for this campaign, it's really hard because funding is already strapped. You're obviously launching a Kickstarter or Indiegogo campaign because you want funding. So this is one of the reasons that I like to provide discounts on my products. This one is a little bit different though, in that Today, I am offering 20% off, not only all of the offerings, which for the core course, this works out to be about $100. But as you're going to see in a second, you're also going to gain $150 off of my next offering, which is unique for this webinar. So first, I want to just give you the overview here of the core offering. With the core offering, you're gaining access to the complete crowdfunding PR system, everything I've been talking about, the engaging videos. I've put a lot of work into making them very easy to consume and also very results and point driven. Smash your Kickstarter goal, my course exclusively on Kickstarter, social media, getting backers, etc. Also, the crowdfunding fast track guidebook. And finally, the Kickstarter success ebook, which comes with the complete crowdfunding PR system. So the Kickstarter success ebook, basically I went out there and I interviewed a lot of the very successful campaigns that have just smashed their Kickstarter goal. And I got them to tell me what they did right and what they would do in the future. So this is like from the horse's mouth. This is not me just talking about strategies. This is them actually sharing with you what they found to be effective in terms of crowdfunding, in terms of getting the name out there, and in terms of getting more backers and getting their project funded, and also getting past the fundraising goal. Because we all know we don't just want to hit our fundraising goal, we also want to exceed it. So you're getting all of this for the $399 value, and that's $100 off also when you use the link that I'm going to mention. So finally, this is the new offering that I have for you, and I'll also share why I'm offering this. But this is the Mega Booster package, and I've added some other things to this. So what you're going to get is all of the bonuses that I just mentioned. You're going to gain access to both of the premium courses, a complete step-by-step tutorial guide to get you out there, to get people interested, and to also surpass your Kickstarter goal. And the two other things I'm offering are individual coaching and social media promotion. So this will be on my own social channels, about over 200,000 social media followers across all of the different channels. You can schedule these posts if you would like. I can have them go out in succession, 5 minutes apart, 10 minutes apart, or over a series of days or a week even. So that's something that has some flexibility. But in terms of the individual coaching, the reason I want to offer this with the Mega Booster package is because I've been getting a lot of good feedback from early students who enrolled when I did offer this. So these students have found this to be sort of like the missing link that allowed them to feel way more confident going through the process, and also to gain from me my own insights on their campaign page, on their video, ways to improve. So they just knew that they were either on the right track or they needed to make a few tweaks with their campaign. I think that in terms of the overall type of class that I don't want too many people enrolling at the individual consulting tier, because I honestly just can't manage lots and lots of new students in terms of individual attention. So for this offer, I'm offering 5 students to enroll with this discounted pricing. So you can go either at this link or at the link in the description of the YouTube video. And when you go there, I use the platform Teachable. So it will only allow the first 5 students who have enrolled to take advantage of the discounted 20% off pricing. And 20% off the Mega Booster package equates to a little bit over $150 of saved money. And also with the standard offering, it makes about $100 off. So you're getting 20% off. And there's also, for the standard offering, a payment plan there if you want to use that. So this is not only because, if I'm doing individual consulting, I want to make sure that I give everyone, selective attention. But I also think it makes sense because it allows me to focus on a smaller cohort of students. And I kind of like that a little bit more. So when you use that link, it's only going to be for the first 5 students that enroll. In terms of the consulting, the training, the coaching, I've had people use that in different ways. One of the more common ways I've seen is to actually break it up. So what people will do is they'll have a short, small consulting session, training session before the campaign launches. And then they'll use the rest of the coaching session either in the middle of the campaign or towards the end in terms of techniques to raise more funds. After looking at the results, after looking what they've been doing, they sort of bring me on then to analyze what they've been doing and to suggest what they should be doing in the last week or when it's live. So there are different ways you can do it. You could just do the entire coaching session, at the beginning or whenever it is you'd like. Do that all in one hit, if you will. But if you would like to break it up, that's also something that I'm flexible with. The only thing that I ask is this is really for people who are ready to go, in that they either have, they have something for me to look at. Like if you would like, I can go more idea stage and give you some information in terms of putting together your elevator pitch, etc. But what I really find to be the most effective is when the creator already has images, they have a rough video, or they're beginning to put together the video, they have a rough idea of the campaign page. They've at least thought about it. So that way I have something to work with, and I can suggest changes, or I can suggest improvements, or going forward, I'll say, look at this strategy more than this one, or you should focus more on doing this, not that. If it's just very idea stage, I find it's a little bit more difficult, but I am willing to also embrace that challenge if that's something that a student wants. I think in terms of the analysis, etc., the more information that I get, the better. And that way, when you're sending these emails to me and I can look over all of the different material, I can also be way more prepared going into the session than if you're just kind of shooting me a link and then we're just having that conversation. I want you to make sure that you're getting the most bang for your buck with the coaching. So that's something really to keep in mind. But again, you can go to that link there. It's also, let's see here, description of this YouTube video. Let me just take a sip of water here. Okay. I also want to look at some of these questions real quick. Gabor, do you have a rule of thumb for building an email list? For selling a $100 product, how many emails do you need? Good question. I'm going to assume they're relevant emails, like you're not just buying a random email list. So I've seen that with e-commerce products, you can, as a baseline, expect about 10% to convert into customers. If it's not a very good match, maybe more closer to 5. If it's a really good match, maybe closer to 15. There are ways you can boost the percentage of people on your email list to become a customer of the product. I've literally, in this webinar, gone through a ton of ways to improve those conversion rates and get more people on the continuum of being a raving fan ready to buy your product. These are all different ways that you can employ, along with even more of the strategies that I talk about in the various courses and products that I'm mentioning here with this special. So there are a lot of ways to improve that conversion rate, but that gives you an idea of the numbers that you might need with an expecting 10 to 15% conversion rate, assuming you ethically. How effective are podcast appearances? It's going to also depend on the type of podcast you appear on. And it also depends on the number of downloads that the podcaster is getting. One thing I have found with podcasts is podcasts are very valuable in that listeners tend to be way more engaged than someone who is reading a blog post. Because a podcast listener is not only listening to your voice, but they're listening to you and your message for a good 40 minutes or a good 30 minutes in the car. That's a lot of attention. So when you're doing a podcast appearance, it's very important that you don't just talk about your product, but you also share this story that you have building the product, and you try and transmit some of the emotions we've been talking about in this webinar through the podcast. That's going to make it a lot easier to get backers or get email signups via that medium, and giving people a reason to sign up. Could be early bird reward tiers, or it could be something else you're offering. That's also going to make it more effective. The other thing I would say is don't make it complex when you're sending someone to a URL. So don't say something like, you should go to kickstarter.com/blah, blah, 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 blah. People aren't, if they're in the car or they're working out or they're doing something else, they're not going to be able to remember that link. Even if the host includes it in the description of the podcast, it's probably going to be less effective than if you bought a unique domain name, something like, the product.com, or something very simple that you can say, people go to thisplace.com. That's going to be easier, and you'll get more conversions if you're going on an audio medium like a podcast. And in addition, last thing I'll say here, if you're doing more of a nonprofit crowdfunding campaign, you could also do a text to donate feature where people can literally just text you, and then they'll get a reply with a link, and they can go and check out your campaign that way. I've seen that be very effective for audio, TV, and also live type of events. let me do one more or two more questions here. We're surpassed our time here. But I want to get one or two more of these. Looking back here, I want to make sure I skipped over a few of these. Can you talk to differences to Indiegogo than Kickstarter? Okay, so aside from the things I've mentioned about the communities, I would say there are a few other core differences. Indiegogo has a secret perk option. Secret perk allows you to reward key backers. That's another way that you can generate the feeling of exclusivity. It can also be another way that you get people interested in getting onto your email list or becoming a part of your community. So I think that's another really big difference. Kickstarter, they have the spotlight feature. That's where you can send someone to a unique URL after the campaign is finished. Kickstarter also has the community tab. Community tab allows you to see the people who have backed a campaign, particularly from different regions, which could be very useful if you're going out there and you're doing Facebook marketing, because then you know to target certain demographics or go after certain regions. That can really help with your Facebook marketing. I think another big difference here is just the philosophy. Indiegogo tends to be a little bit more open-minded than Kickstarter in the types of projects they accept. So they might accept a project that Kickstarter would not, or open-minded in that they allow, not only keep what you raise, but also all or nothing kind of crowdfunding. So they're a little bit more open in that way. But I would say the main difference is I found to be having better customer service than Kickstarter. Is there a better time of the year to launch your campaign? Robert, it's going to vary. I know I prefaced these questions, but it's going to vary, but I want to be accurate. It's going to vary based on the product type. So for example, the Coolest Cooler initially launched during a bad time of the year, and they didn't do as they liked. They didn't raise the amount of money that they wanted to. So they canceled, and they ended up launching more in the summertime, because when you're in the summertime, people are thinking about the beach. They're thinking about going out there with a cooler, with their beer, with whatever, and with their friends, and this fun time. And we've been talking about generating these positive emotions and tying your product to these positive emotions. It's a lot easier when that time of the year for them, the vision of the product is on the beach, having a good time with friends, making it super convenient and easy so you're not lugging all of this stuff. So for them, the time of the year really mattered. For other people, it might not matter as much. I can definitely see if it's a product that, is going to be more like you would buy as a gift. Then, Christmas time, or sorry, in fall is going to be a bit of an easier sell because people are in the mindset of wanting to buy a gift for someone else. Like we're talking about the baby boomers. That could be another reason that time might factor in. But I mean, Kickstarter campaigns are launched successfully throughout the year. And even sometimes you look at popularity, sometimes you might assume that you want to launch a campaign on Monday or Tuesday because a lot of people are launching then. But at the same time, that's when there's the most activity and the most competition on the site. So I think it really varies in that way. It kind of is hard to give a blanket answer to that one. Okay, one more question, guys. then I'm going to have to get going here. Thank you so much also for attending the webinar. I hope you got a lot out of it. I would love any questions you have in the chat. I'll try to answer one more. And in addition, if you do choose to enroll, I'm really excited to begin to work with some of the students one-on-one with the Mega Booster package. And even with these webinars, I always just find them to be a great way to interact with the community and a great way to answer your questions, but also deliver a little bit deeper than the other mediums that I have, like YouTube videos or podcasts or blog articles. So I really like them for that reason. Okay, let me look here. One more question. Okay, last question. Richard Chapman, is using Fund It today worth the 31%? Will I still be able to fill my orders? Good question. Fund It today, basically what they're going to be doing for you is they are going to be doing Facebook ads, and they're going to be using their email list and the people that they've sold to in the past to try to get a really good bang for their buck in terms of low cost per click, low acquisition cost as a customer for you, and boost your funding meter that way. So they're doing paid advertising, and they're doing it via Facebook. And because they have done other campaigns, they have a little bit of a data advantage. That being said, I think that their initial fee is really high. I don't think it's reasonable. They are a profit motivated company. They're going to charge you as much as they can, I think. And particularly with the percentage of amount raised, they're doing that because they can, because they've run other successful campaigns, and they're just going to make as much money as possible, in my opinion. But is it right for you? It comes down to your margins. It comes down to, if you end up raising, let's just say, $100,000, and you are producing the product and you're producing all the rewards, by giving away that percentage of the amount raised, can you still fulfill the rewards? Can you still ship out all of these rewards, or are you going to go into debt? I've had a lot of people who end up raising a bunch of money, but they go into debt trying to fulfill the rewards because they don't calculate into all these things like shipping and fulfillment and even different variations on the rewards. So you want to make sure that, take out the spreadsheet, make sure if you contribute that amount of money to the marketing for that company, that you can still fulfill and make good on your promises to your backers. Because at the end of the day, that is what's going to be the goodwill that enables you to then do future product launches, and the goodwill that enables you to grow your business into the future, like an e-commerce store, or if it's more of an entertainment, like board game product on your website. So I think that's something really personal. You're going to have to break out the spreadsheet and do all of the different numbers. Guys, thank you so much for coming on the webinar. If you would like to be on my podcast, etc., I'm opening it up. I'm thinking about doing more podcasts with students that enroll like Guido. I really like to dive more in depth into why people create products, their whole story, etc. But in general, I tend to highlight people who are taking action and make results happen. They've gotten results, whether it is with media hits, or results in terms of funding, or results in terms of the number of backers for their campaign. Like, those are the types of people that I generally like to highlight, and also the types of people that I think people in the community tend to resonate with. Thank you guys so much for joining me, for being great and being respectful to your fellow students. I really appreciate this, and also supporting all of the different content I put out on the different channels. Appreciate it a lot. And as always, I will see you guys next time.